illustrations with practical. I hope to get everything all done practical wise. I probably will not have, if I set it up Friday, so I probably, if you're going to be here looking at bones for a while, I'm doing a setup with Dr. Hannah for some kids we have on campus on Monday. So Monday's busy. So I'll probably have to get in here. If I don't get it set up by before our lecture on Monday, we'll probably have to start in the lab a little later doing the thing. So it may not be so, well, I'll know, but it might not be till 3:30. It probably takes me an hour and 50 minutes to label the bone and tape on the bone, open holes, all that good stuff. So that's the first little nugget I can tell you. Nugget number 2, I will show you. Like I said, sometimes it's just the bones, but I'll show you the typical slides that I reproduce and have next to it. So rather than my bad handwriting, I'll have questions that will already be, printed up, so they'll be typed and printed, and typically it'll say identify the bone and identify the features. Some of the questions may be multiple choice type of questions, or there may be a true false, that kind of thing that's there. So I don't be surprised if you see that that kind of a question. So let me just go sort of by the numbers and show you what slides I typically use. And as I said, and you'll see this again, obviously, so I'm recording it all have it, assuming we don't. For this, I generally do. I use a bone model for a skull, and I'll try to put tape like on the sutures, like this way, or in the middle that way, or down here or over here. Okay, so I don't generally print out on it, and I don't use this particular slide or that one. We'll get it there. And typically, I do not use this. It's a little too busy for me. So, and so we have. You might recall we have that blue colored rubber plastic, whatever it's made out of, occipital bone. I will use that. So I won't necessarily be printing this out. That's there. So and you can see. I mean, there's X amount of anatomy on that you'll be able to remember. There's a hypoglossal canal and the occipital condyle, the foramen magnum, and the bone itself. Those are the major structures that you need to be familiar with. And I don't use this because I have enough other stuff that I don't have to necessarily use this side that's there. So again, that was the occipital bone. I don't use this undersurface view. Typically, if I'm interested, I will have a skull and put a pipe cleaner or a Q-tip, like a flag with a label on it. That's my approach to doing these. So if I want a jugular foramen, it would be there. So, or you'll see the ones in the sphenoid that are fair game coming up short. Now the temporal bone, there's always a question, and I always printed this. So I will have this printed. Typically, the way when it comes to the teaching resources they send us, I typically just print this. I might print that side too, but and obviously it doesn't have any labels. I will just draw a Sharpie or marker of some type that's there. And typically I'll have agency. The answer sheet is good. There may be potentially as many as 24 sheets. There are potentially as many as 24 stations. And 15 of you. There'll probably be somewhere between 20 and 24. They will have either 3 or 4 responses at each. That's could be the max could be 96. The min would be 72. So it's usually around 80. And again, it doesn't really matter because it's more of it's a not number right test, it's number wrong test. So I'll just do deduction. Like if you've got it as a foramen magnum over there, and you call it the foramen spinosum, which is so tiny, but you get a half point for Raymond. If you forget the frame and magnify, would be you might only get a quarter. But so as I got off the stuff, we're going to know the parts, but the major structures, the process, mastoid, styloid, zygomatic, the external acoustic meatus, the stylomastoid foramen's underneath there. It's relatively easily visible. It's hard to put something on that fossa that receives the mandibular condyle. Straightforward with you with regard to that. And so now the sphenoid is certainly the most complex. So I use not only these, I also use the plastic. It's like a reddish color. So what are structures that potentially could be in there? The optic canal, certainly. The greater and lesser wings, certainly. The pterygoid plates. I would just have you identify pterygoid plates rather than put in medial or lateral. Superior orbital fissure would be part of it. So that's just the start. The cella turcica, that cavity-like depression, that would be part of it. So again, lesser wings, greater wings, fissure, the optic canal, and then certainly, and not lastly, so it doesn't. The better illustration is to show that is here. And so when I give you these, foramen rotundum, foramen ovale, foramen spinosum, I will generally have whatever what do you call it? Stems? Are they? Yeah, I call them. My wife has it. She's a crafter. Something stems. I don't recall. I'll text her. She'll be happy to answer. Sir.
Well, how do we like to know like small things?
Listen to this. So far, a lot of those names are going to be on there. Okay, so re-listen to that. If I'm mentioning here, there's probably a 90% chance it will be on here. Can I? And yes, you're going to have to identify. Here's the test question. I told you already. I'm going to have a picture of the orbit, and you're going to say, and here's the question. Identify 4 bones in the orbit. Talk about transparency. It's all right. I tell you, did I rock? No, I do this a lot. I did that. I haven't told anybody this. It's because you're special. And so I love music. And my dad and mom got one of these old record players, very unsophisticated, like a box, and it had the old record player with the arm in it. And this was in mono stereo, that's back in the day. And and I would listen to my sister's record as we got older. So this was circa 1956, 57. So I would sit there if I liked the song rock. So I was really into it. And it all started. I just listen to music constantly. And to some extent, I still do. But I can't play it because things to music I listen to. He calls it elevator music. I call it. No, she's a good dancer. I literally have. I told you about the show. Two left feet. You're going to have to watch that movie. When you see Eugene Levy literally having left feet hysterical. I've got 2 left feet. My God, you'll see some of the lines from that. The F point, you don't have one, so I use this. So Chris Galley, particular plate, cribriform plate. Okay, good to go. Don't worry about the orbital plate or the ethmoidal air masses. The big plate, form plate with foramen plate. Know this is your ethmoid. So I mean, I'd print that out just to give you, and I put a square around this and say, here, 4 bones in the structure. Now you have to put some orbit. And occasionally I would print this out so you can see rotundum ovale. If I know Steve, I don't love this one, so I don't know about printing. Nothing about super bone. The facial, I use the only one that I would use, and I don't know that I would print this out, but the most anatomy by far is here. So you have to know the condylar process, the ramus, the angle, the body. Okay, those are all structures of the mandibular foramen. That's really important clinically from a standpoint, just because we use so many injections in that particular that are there. And then for these other ones, I use that model that has the maxilla and has the nasal bone, black bone. So I don't separate them. You know, I have that rubberized model that you might remember, and hopefully you do. Okay. So so nasal, lacrimal, maxillary, palatine, zygomatic. Those are the ones that are on there. The vomer is not. I don't have one. The turbinate or the conchae. I don't even think the bones itself. You know, so I don't put those on. But palatine, maxillary, zygomatic, nasal, lacrimal, all there. Dun, dun, dun. Nothing there, nothing there. The highway is not on there. We say that for muscles. I will not be on there. Here's looking at you. I usually put that out just for the orbit. I don't do the sinuses. Thank you very much. Try to get this done, then you can look around. So we'll go through these again. And I'm not going to ask about the curvature or anything like that. The big deal are the nucleus pulp. That's more like material. That's more like lecture-oriented material. And we won't be doing unless we do it somewhere with regard to the nervous system. Okay, and not that I won't use those. This is on. So all that is your game. Okay, the body, the spine is something I said. I just thought maybe, you two are in a snit. Oh, great. I'm just going to get into trouble again. I'm going to say I have. So once again, one of those other. It's not about you. It's about everybody else. No, I have enough off color. 2.5 more years. I can retire. 2.5. That's all. I may even stay another 3 years. What else would I do? Okay. Where else could people have to listen to? Or make it look like they're listening to? Laugh at the jokes. So, finest processes, transverse processes are all on me. I'll probably have a bone label. I'll have the picture, laminate, pedicle, the whole. Distinguish between C1 and C2. There will be out there. Okay. You need to know the distinction because I'll have a cervical, a lumbar, and a thoracic vertebrae. You're going to need to know which. Okay. That'll be the question. From what region does this come? Maybe I'll identify a feature or two. That's basically the nature of the question. So I want to be printing these. I don't feel the need to do that. I think we'll print C1 and C2. Okay. So I'll use have an illustration. Nothing with that. And other than that, you would have to know what a rib looks like. You have to know what a clavicle looks like. And don't forget that you need to be aware of some of the questions might be from what region? Is it from the skull? Is it axial? Is it appendicular? Is it from the forearm? From the arm? So that's part of it. And the sacrum would just be a one bone identified, wouldn't ask for anything of any consequence. I do not think with that. I mean, the auricular surface is noteworthy, but I just think our sacral specimens are not that great. Okay, and the same with our ribs. I use the model for the sternum as well as for the costal cartilages. Okay, and so you have to know the regions: manubrium body, xiphoid, etc. Costal cartilage is the cartilage attached, ribs attached to sternum. I won't ask you about this. It's informational more than anything else. I'm not worried about true false bloating. Okay, or the anatomy of the ribs, so don't worry about that. But that's like one of the ways you can tell if it's a thoracic vertebrae. It's going to have a little facet on the body and a little facet on the transverse process. They're so small we call them demifacets. Okay, so they're like half inches, like a demitasse. Inky up.
You said the last few jokes. Go on.
I'm no, I didn't. I don't drink. Nothing. Okay, moving on. So that's the end of that one. We have one more to go. This is the easier one because the structures are inherently large. Okay, we have two more to go because that's the two joints. And then open the cupboard back there, the doors, get out the bones, leave them out. I have a lab coming in at 3. We're doing bones as well. So plenty of opportunity for looking at the bones. Okay. You should know the distinction between the pectoral and the pelvic girdle. The pectoral girdle, clavicle, and scapula, because there are 2 bone units. That's there. And as well, and the anatomy is fairly. The clavicle, just know what the clavicle is. The anatomy portion of that will be, other than knowing what the clavicle is, it's going to be all scapula. So I'm not. You can see the distinction of the sternal and wider. I don't put that illustration. But when it comes to the scapula, I use a lot. You should know the spine. Knowing the orientation tells you which is the acromion, which is the coracoid, and the notch is very distinctive, as you can see there. The glenoid fossa, you should be able to tell fairly easily. And you're going to need to be familiar with supraspinous, infraspinous, and scapular fossa. And some scapular, you can't see it's into. So I do use this illustration because that way I can identify supraspinous, infraspinous, and subscapular rather than infraspinous fossa. That are there. So you should be familiar with those as well. The humerus has a fair amount of anatomy. All of those structures are part of it. So again, head, don't worry about neck. Greater and lesser tubercles are important. Greater only because it sits up higher, not necessarily size. Deltoid tuberosity, medial and lateral epicondyles, capitulum, I beg your pardon, trochlea and capitulum here, as well as the olecranon fossa. So there's a lot. There's enough for 2 questions worth on a humerus. We don't go too crazy about this. I won't necessarily use the illustration, but it's easier for you to look at it to understand, particularly the olecranon is the extension on the ulna. The head of the radius has that like mushroom cap and sits on the capitulum. That's to some extent where it gets its name. And that little indentation that's covered in cartilage that is on the ulna itself, if you're looking at the superior aspect rather than posterior aspect, you have the radial none. Again, we name stuff for what goes there. In this case, it's the head of the radius. And that again allows you to pronate and supinate. The radial tuberosity is very distinctive. And then distally, styloid. So the radial notch is over here, is radial head. So the head of the ulna is up here. There's really no anatomy to it, so you don't use it. The ulnar styloid is here. The radial styloid is here. I beg your pardon. The radial, even in the ulnar head, happens to be over here by definition. So it's and you're so you. I'll never ask you about the ulnar head. Okay. Distally, you can see that you have like scaphoid, lunate, and those are really the big bones that are really part. So scaphoid, lunate, a little bit of tricuspid. That pisiform is not part of it. So I don't necessarily use that or ask you what a collies fracture is, but I use it in illustration. So you need to know your scaphoid, lunate, triquetral. Pisiform's easy. It's the only one. It's circular, it's like a P, and it's by definition a sesamoid bone. So it's not really. It's designed to move around. And then, of course, as we look on the next, the more distal grouping, trapezium, very important because of making that saddle joint with the base of the first metacarpal, trapezoid, capitate, and most importantly, the hamate. And the hamate has that shelf called the hamulus. So you're going to have to know those bones. I don't care about meta. See, to me, it's very. That's the cartilage. This is maybe carpal, metacarpal, phalanges. I'm not going to ask you about metacarpal metatarsals and phalanges in the hand or phalanges in the foot. They're long bones. They're very similar. Okay, not about carpal tunnel. Again, coxal bones, us coxae, or we just call it the hip bone. Three, ilium, ischium, and pubis. They all contribute to the acetabulum. I don't generally use this illustration. Uh, Things that are important, iliac crest. There's an anterior and posterior superior spines. That's at the end of the crest, the anterior and posterior, the greater sciatic knot, the ischial tuberosity we're all sitting on as we speak. Those are all structures. Okay, so know those. And there's not, again, the pubis, there's not a lot of yeah, and of course, the obturator foramen. So know these structures. Again, anterior and posterior superior spines, they're there. They have an important of attachment of muscle sphincter, palpably distinctive on the bone. Okay, moving along. We're not going to do the pelvic inlet, outlet, or anything distinguished. You don't have to know right to left. Femur, very significant. Again, the fovea, that indentation there, the head, the neck are distinctive. Greater and lesser trochanters, intertrochanteric line, something you see posteriorly, and then the roughened area that goes down to the gluteal tuberosity. That's there. This is the linea aspera. So you have here, and there's not. I don't ask about the adductor tubercle, but the medial and lateral condyles. Okay, patellar surface is covered in cartilage with a patella to ride on, and then here the intercondylar fossa. That's the anatomy. Tibia and fibula, very straightforward. Tibia has. I'll get to it. So what do we see here? They call it the intercondylar eminence. Some authors call it tibial tubercles. They protrude small, but they're the connection for cruciate ligaments. The tibial tuberosity, have a bump in front of your knee. Ouch. Okay. So the head is under here. The pointy area of the fibula. So the fibula has very little anatomy. So it's the head and the lateral malleolus. Tibia is the medial malleolus, is much larger. Again, tibia, the big one. TB. How can you mess it up? Voila. And then from a foot perspective, I use this view and the side view, one or the other or both. Calcaneus, talus, navicular, cuboid. So I wouldn't worry about the cuneiforms for you football fans. That's the Lisfrank's joint. This is the Lisfranc joint across, and that's the stability point. We're really worried. When an athlete breaks up there, big trouble. See at the Penguins game last night, they're chanting "Fire Canada, fire!" This Steelers fits. That made everything. Made the New York papers. Oh yeah, he's done. They won't. They just don't fire him. They should. I mean, if he's making another clunker, they got 4 winnable games where they have to get hard. We'll see. It's you see, interesting stat. Okay, in games where Mike Tomlin has lost by 20 points, the next game is 12-2. What does that mean? Makes no sense. All right, and that's that. Joints. Lastly, here they are. Okay, so I wanted to get this to you effectively, and this is a B PowerPoint. So, and I'll show you the other. Is there a chance I could use lateral ligament there? Yeah. That you know is temporomandibular joint? Yeah. Okay, not that. Not that. Definitely this picture. You'd have to know this was a tendon along out of the bicep, tendon sheath, bursal sac, acromion. All of those would be fair game, I think. I think I like the other one better. Knowing that this is a glenoid, this is the labrum, okay, would be important. This is the capsule. So I think that might be of interest to you as well. Not too worried about that. And then the other one that has whatever other anatomy, to me, it's just a little too busy to ask good questions about. It's hard to be distinctive about it, because you can see all the ligament structure. The same with that, with the the head, the femur, and the acetabulum. I don't really get excited about that. But the knee would be the other one. So you would certainly, any of these illustrations, whether we're looking at menisci, whether we're looking at cruciate ligaments, we're looking at bursal sacs of any type, certainly this illustration I think I've always used, anterior, posterior cruciates. You know it's the anterior because one, you get that, it doesn't labeled that way, but that bump in the vestibular tuberosity, and anterior goes from medial to lateral. Okay, so it's more, and it's more attached to the medial meniscus. Another way that you know it. And sometimes I'll use this as well. Not that. This possibly. This is a good illustration, better than the other one. I like this one because you can definitely see the ligaments that are there, the cruciates. You'll be able to distinguish anterior and posterior, which has the wider, which is wider anteriorly. The anterior is wider inferior. Okay, and I think that's from that. Okay. So while on to that, and then phones are back there. Look, I'm here. Ask questions. Okay, good to go. Take them out. It saves me from lugging out the phone to do the same kind of presentation in my next class.